Please be seated. Good afternoon, and welcome to the White House. Of all the privileges of serving as President, there is no greater honor than serving as Commander-in-Chief of the finest military that the world has ever known. And of all the military decorations that a president and a nation can bestow, there is none higher than the Medal of Honor. It has been nearly 150 years since our nation first presented this medal for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action at the risk of life above and beyond the call of duty. And in those nearly 150 years, through Civil War and 2 World Wars, Korea and Vietnam, Desert Storm and Somalia, Afghanistan and Iraq, and countless battles in between, tens of millions of Americans have worn the uniform. But fewer than 3,500 have been recognized with the Medal of Honor. And in our time, these remarkable Americans are literally 1 in a million. And today we recognize another, Sergeant First Class Jared C. Monte. The Medal of Honor reflects the admiration and gratitude of the nation. So we are joined by members of Congress, including from Sergeant Monte's home state of Massachusetts, Senators John Kerry and Congressman Barney Frank. We're joined by our Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Admiral Mike Mullen, and leaders from across the armed forces. We are joined by the leaders of the Army, to which Sergeant Monte dedicated his life. Secretary Pete Guerin, our incoming Secretary, confirmed by the Senate last night, John McHugh, Chief of Staff General George Casey, Sergeant Major of the Army Ken Preston, and Jared's fellow soldiers and commanders from the legendary 10th Mountain Division. And we are joined by those who now welcome Sergeant Monte into their storied ranks, members of the Medal of Honor Society. But today is not about high officials and those with stars on their shoulders. It's a celebration of a young soldier and those who loved him, who made him into the man he was and who join us today. His mother, Janet, his father, Paul, his brother, Tim, and his sister, Nicole, and from his grandmother, Marjorie, to his 6-year-old niece, Carice, and cousins and aunts and uncles from across America, more than 120 proud family and friends. Duty, honor, country, service, sacrifice, heroism. These are words of weight. But as a people and as a culture, we often invoke them lightly. We toss them around freely. But do we really grasp the meaning of these values? Do we truly understand the nature of these virtues? To sacrifice. Jared Monte knew. The Monte family knows. And they know that the actions we honor today were not a passing moment of courage. They were the culmination of a life of character and commitment. There was Jared's compassion. He was the kid at school who, upon seeing a student eating lunch alone, would walk over and befriend him. He was the teenager who cut down a spruce tree in his yard so a single mom in town would have a Christmas tree for her children. He even bought the ornaments and the presents. He was the soldier in Afghanistan who received care packages, including fresh clothes, and gave them away to Afghan children who needed them more. There was Jared's perseverance. Cut from the high school basketball team, he came back next year and the next year and the next year, 3 times, finally making varsity and outscoring some of the top players. Told he was too young for the military, he joined the National Guard's delayed entry program as a junior in high school. And that summer, while other kids were at the beach, Jared was doing drills. There was Jared's strength and skill, the championship wrestler and triathlete who went off to basic training, just 18 years old, and then served with distinction as a forward observer. with the heavy responsibility of calling in airstrikes. He returned from his first tour in Afghanistan highly decorated, including a Bronze Star and Army Commendation Medal for Valor. And there was Jared's deep and abiding love for his fellow soldiers. Maybe it came from his mom, who was a nurse. Maybe it came from his dad, a teacher. Guided by the lessons he learned at home, Jared became the consummate NCO, the non-commissioned officer caring for his soldiers and teaching his troops. He called them his boys, and although obviously he was still young himself, some of them called him Grandpa. Compassion, perseverance, strength, a love for his fellow soldiers. Those are the values that defined Jared Monte's life, and the values he displayed in the actions that we recognize here today. It was June 21st, 2006, in the remotest northeast of Afghanistan, near the border with Pakistan. Sergeant Monte was a team leader on a 16-man patrol. They'd been on the move for 3 days, down dirt roads, sloshing through rivers, hiking up steep mountain trails, their heavy gear on their backs, moving at night and in the early morning to avoid the scorching 100-degree heat. Their mission, to keep watch on the valley down below in advance of an operation to clear the area of militants. Those who were there remember that evening on the mountain, a rocky ridge not much bigger than this room. Some were standing guard, knowing they had been spotted by a man in the valley. Some were passing out MREs and water. There was talk of home and plans for leave. Jared was overheard remembering his time serving in Korea. Then, just before dark, there was a shuffle of feet in the woods, and that's when the tree line exploded in a wall of fire. One member of the patrol said it was like thousands of rifles crackling, bullets and heavy machine gun fire ricocheting across the rocks, rocket-propelled grenades raining down, fire so intense that weapons were shot right out of their hands. Within minutes, one soldier was killed, another was wounded. Everyone dove for cover, behind a tree, a rock, a stone wall. This patrol of 16 men was facing a force of some 50 fighters. Outnumbered, the risk was real. They might be overrun, they might not make it out alive. And that's when Jared Monte did what he was trained to do. With the enemy advancing, so close they could hear their voices, he got on his radio and started calling in artillery. When the enemy tried to flank them, he grabbed a gun and drove them back. And when they came back again, he tossed a grenade and drove them back again. And when these American soldiers saw one of their own, wounded, lying in the open, some 20 yards away, exposed to the approaching enemy, Jared Monte did something no amount of training can instill. His patrol leader said he'd go, but Jared said, "No, he is my soldier. I'm going to get him." It was written long ago that the bravest are surely those who have the clearest vision of what is before them, glory and danger alike, and yet, notwithstanding, go out to meet it. Jared Monte saw the danger before him, and he went out to meet it. He handed off his radio, he tightened his chin strap, and with his men providing cover, Jared rose and started to run.